Hi, welcome back to Ribbon Candy Hooking. I'm Deanna. I'm starting a new series that'll be a specific playlist on the Ribbon Candy Hooking channel. And every week, I thought it would be really nice to look at some rugs together, rug posts that people have put over the various social media sites, look at different people in different groups that are posting projects they're working on, or something they've just completed, or something new that all pertain to rug hooking. I thought that might be a nice thing to do because I know for myself, looking at the different sites, I often miss things and I'm not on all of the time. And I think sometimes you miss things that are really good and inspirational. So this will be the first time that we do this kind of a video. It's going to be a weekly recap that runs Sunday to Sunday. So this is the first one that covers August 16th to August 23rd. This is by no means the best of the rugs. These are all fantastic rugs, but I'm not saying that yours is not if you posted this week. I just missed it. So look out for these videos and let's look together at some of the work other people are doing. And if you are posting a rug that you'd like me to cover in this segment, then please bring it to my attention by tagging me or sending me some kind of a note or a link. Because I'd love to see your rugs and I just miss a lot of them, and that will be the purpose of these videos. So let's start by looking at some of the rugs that I saw this week that really inspired me.
Okay, so I think I am sharing my screen with you now. Let's look at some of the rugs this week that have really caught my eye. And like I say, I missed so much. I loved these, and that's why I made this selection. I love these, and I think they're really different. This is the first one I'm showing you. You can see the post is by Claudia Desantis Whitaker, and it was posted in the Hooked Line and Sinker Rug Hooking Club, which is one of my favorite pages. It's one of the other really friendly pages. Everybody's super positive, and it's not so huge that you don't know names and recognize people. It's a really nice informational group. And I love this rug, and I love what she writes over here. This was originally a worm stash buster, and she says the ice cream colors will always make me think of summer, and that is such a nice sentiment for the end of August, especially on a crazy year. There's so many of these worm buster projects going on all over the country. I belong to a lot of the ATHA groups, and so many of them have had over these pandemic months stash busters, worm busters, to try to use up all of your worms, or some people say wool strips or noodles. Use them up on a nice, positive project. This is so good. And if you see, people ask a lot and put in a lot of questions and comments about directional hooking. This is a masterpiece of directional hooking because you can see she's got circular motifs and then rings, like half circle rings going out. But then for variety and contrast, she's got these vertical lines going on every other scallop, sort of scallopy, seashell-y pattern. Nice traditional pattern. This is her own design, and I think it's super successful, not just in terms of the design, which is successful, but also the colors. And with these scrap rugs, it's also so nice to be able to put in a border of your choice. And you can see she did a hit or miss type border with all of the colors. It's picking up all of the colors, but the patterning seems to be that there's purples in greens in the motif scallops, and the odd rows are the sort of vertical color changing wool strips. It's super successful as a design, and I think it's really, really something special. Now, how could I pass this up? This is so cute. Katie, I think it's called, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name right, Katie Decos or Decasa, for being very Italian. This came up in the contemporary rug hooking group, and that is another huge, great group full of inspiration. And this rug is just too much. Sunny the dog, and this cute picture of a retriever with his paw on Sunny the dog. And she says, I made this for a friend with a new puppy, and it's supposed to go under the water dish, but she told the friend, absolutely not on the floor. It's too beautiful, it's too good, and it's so cute to read comments in these kinds of posts because everybody was writing, backing that up. No, absolutely not on the floor. Tell your friend not to put it on the floor. It's such a pretty rug. People love pet rugs, particularly dog rugs, and I think I have 3 in the list that we're doing right now. But they are so sentimental and they are such precious gifts. And this one is such a summery one with the yellow dog and the blue background. Look at what a great use of space this is behind Sunny. so much directional hookings. The color is changing and moving. There's movement, but the motif of the dog is still so strong and so folky and so successful. It's just a fantastic rug. Katie also did that beautiful rug of that's sort of one of the COVID rugs of the girl with the mask. Oh, right here, if you can see it. If you remember this one. It's an amazing rug too. I think that's become iconic on all of these pages. Now here's another fantastic dog by Monica Mezzerly Jones. I hope I got that right too. She writes, this is so cute. I mean, come on, its eyes are like hearts, right? Are you seeing that? And the jowls they look like they're plaid, some kind of checker or plaid. And she says, my daughter is a second grade teacher and the bulldog is the mascot of her school. So she hooked this mat to surprise her. And then she wrote me and said that this had just arrived at her daughter's house. And the daughter is teaching remotely, of course, with our crazy times, and is going to be displaying this dog rug behind her. And I know as a parent with my kids working remotely and now working just at home with this coming year, it's such a big deal for the kids when there isn't a lot of social interaction and they're looking at pictures, live feeds from their teachers. It's so cool when the teacher hangs something up in the background that's eye-catching and fun for the kids. And this is obviously the ultimate fun and eye-catching. I think this is just such a fantastic design, such a cute dog. The kids are going to love that. Something really different. Avis Rickman from the Contemporary Rug Hooking Group. This rug is Chimera. That's the name of the rug. It's also the style of the rug. This is an older pattern, she says, but I believe it's a pattern by Jeannie Benjamin. A chimera is, by definition, a mix of like different animals and elements, and has a sort of mythological connotation because the being called a chimera is like a lion, kind of a monster that has a head of a snake or goat or dragon or combination. So there's a dragon in the middle with wings. There's elements of this classic chimera, but the word chimera has morphed over time, and it is now the connotation is like it's a kind of a tapestry with a mixture of animals, which this certainly is, because we're seeing the dragon in the center, very mythological, but then we're seeing other animals with sort of scaled backs that look more like rodents or squirrels, and more of a domestic looking animal with a wild tail. This is the nature of a chimera, and it's so cool to look at a design like this because there are a lot, even of this particular one online. When I say a lot, I mean like 5. They're super rare, and honestly, this is my favorite one that I've seen, and that's why I wanted to put it here. I'm not sure I said, you can probably see this is in the Contemporary Rug Hooking Group. But I loved finding this pattern. She posted it again later with the colors popped a little bit better, but it is so rich with the dark background. If you Google Chimera rugs, particularly by Jeannie Benjamin, you will find more with lighter backgrounds and different color backgrounds. So just try to picture this same design so many different ways. It's infinite. And speaking of stash busters and worm busters, a design like this is fantastic for that, because you can see this design does not dictate color by any means. The unifying thing really is this border of simple flowers. This is almost like a medieval flower design, which is real appropriate for something that feels like a tapestry. The colors here are magnificent because the oranges and the purples are working opposite and complementary to each other with the black background. But you can see how this would be a rug with, assuming you keep the unifying border and that part is the same, you can add all kinds of different colors and combinations of colors and end up with a really successful piece that is completely unique. This is just an amazing rug. This rug is by my new friend, Connie Spalding. She posted this in the Woolen Folk page. I also, just on my page, which is rug hooking and that's ampersand and the symbol, Punch Needle Club, I just did a little profile on Connie with some of her rugs. This one isn't one of the ones I put in it, but she sent some photos of her past rugs, and they're all gorgeous. I love the caption too. Woohoo! A sentiment we all know, right? Except for finishing the outlining, the difficult part is done, and it really is. That is the tricky part that she's done in the center. Now, I've learned since that Connie is also a quilter and has quilted for years. So I think, as a former quilter myself, Not former as in I'm in rehab, former as in I can't deal with the sewing machine and hanging out on the floor with pins anymore, former like that. But I think that this design is like an around the world. Connie, I should have asked you, it looks like an around the world, like trip around the world quilt. But what I love about it is this very strong central motif that really speaks to people who like primitive and folk and quilting, right? It's got such a multifold appeal. But then around the edge of it, we've got this ring of primitive flowers. And I cannot wait to see this design as it progresses, because I think it has, in terms of color, in terms of how well she's putting it together, and the promise of those flowers around that border is going to be a huge question mark, and hugely interesting to see how that evolves. So we'll keep our eyes peeled for that. Another dog rug. This was put up by Claudia Jean Cola on Hooking with Friends. Hooking with Friends is another one of my favorite pages. I love to share things with my group that I think are fun and inspirational. Some of the groups don't have the share option, so I'm not able to actually share posts that I see there. I wrote to everybody in this video to ask permission. But that is a club that if you are not already a member of Hooking with Friends, you might want to look at this one, because this is a really fun, friendly club. This dog is so cute. The pattern is by Woolly Fox. And Claudia wrote to me and she said, at some point I will donate the pillow to an auction that benefits a Cocker Spaniel rescue. And it's looking at this, it makes me extra love it. She writes, only the wool of the dog is new wool, and the rest of the wool she dyed using recycled fabric from thrift store clothing. And the back of the dog is a recycled wool blanket. So that is really cool too, because sometimes I question, maybe you question, does recycled wool really work? You know, occasionally you get the odd piece that's super shreddy and frustrating to work with. Over dyeing it, sometimes dirty, messy, lots of extra cleaning and washing. But you know what? Look at this. And this tells you it works. Using recycled wool is fun, is interesting, it works. Hit up those thrift stores, right? The church thrift stores aren't really open this year. Hopefully soon, but all the big chains are. And if you can find beautiful wool like this that you can cut up and turn into a masterpiece like this, then you are not only a bargain hunter, you're a genius, right? Fantastic job. This rug, yeah, I love this. This was put up in Contemporary Rug Hooking Group by Louis Rowe, and this is his first rug. So, I mean, come on, this is crazy. This is punch needle. It's a 29 by 17 inch rug with wool yarn. He says he started it last fall, but he just got around to finishing it last week, and he calls it Pup Dreams. I love this design. It has so much mid-century charm that it's insane. I can see how you just got to finishing it, because for me this would be such a daunting finish with this entirely shaped border. Tricky and complicated, but man, it doesn't get much better than this. This is so cool and folky and perfect. Love the technique. I love the simple colors. This is such a reminder that you don't have to go crazy with colors all the time. This is cartoony, but more Matisse and masterpiece than cartoony. It's got so much going on. So, Louis, if this is your first rug, as it is, I would say this is going to be amazing watching what else you're going to produce in the near future. Louis's Instagram, if you use Instagram, is at, and this is one word, Blood Craisin, as in, you know, craisins that you eat, BLOODCRAISIN. And he says he comes from a background mostly in drawing and graphic design, but started playing with fiber a couple of years ago, mostly doing things like small weavings and embroideries. And he started Pup Dreams last fall using a rug hooking needle, Cascade Echo, and Highland wool yarn. So it's a burlap backing, and he used a quilting hoop. So that's all interesting to know how different people work, because you can picture it coming together now. And he says since he started this piece, he's been experimenting with different rug hooking techniques. Punch needle, he says, without much success. So actually this is not punch, this is hooked with yarn. Sorry about that, hooked with yarn. And he's also tried hand knotting on a loom, super ambitious, but he really enjoys being the illustrative qualities that are possible with rug hooking. And you can see, coming from the point of view as an artist and graphic designer, he's got a lot of fine lines in there, and the lines that he has are important to the expressions of the dog and the motion of the dog, especially the standing dog. It's an exceptional piece. I can't honestly believe that such an ambitious, extraordinary piece is a first piece. It's so cool. Congratulations. So next window. Okay. It's a common, and I can't wait. Rhonda Thomas in the sharing the love of rug hooking. This is another group you should check out if you are not a member. This is another group I can't share from, but I look at the page as often as I can, and I am super inspired and encouraged and in love with everything I see on this page. This is a Halloween piece. The design is by Cami Bruce. It is gorgeous. There are so many parts to this that I like. The witch's costume is obviously patterned wool and is extraordinary. I can see this house over here at least is made out of another patterned wool. So much interest. There's a lot of negative space in here, but you can see kind of antique blacks and blues in the background. The background is extraordinary. Some of the things I love about this are the character of the moon, right? His face is a little bit sort of romantic and dreamy, a little bit droopy. The top of the moon is a little bit droopy. I love the composition, the way that the witch, and by the way, I love the skin tone of the witch. I think that is so different and cool, and the shape of her hat. I love how the composition has her sitting both on the edge of the moon and the edge of her broom. And I love, Rhonda, that you hooked this in a way that the broom is a motif, but it doesn't stand out. It's not too bright. It's not too light. It doesn't cut the picture diagonally. It falls into the background, and the things that stand out obviously are the witch, the cat, the moon, and that collection of stars, all in different colors. I mean, that is just amazing. Other details that are amazing, just the simpleness of the shoes and the boots, the way that it's hooked diagonally right down, just a couple of strips on the ankles. It looks like you have a primitive cut and then a smaller cut next to it, which sometimes you have to do, cut a strip down a little bit to get to the right size. And then on the houses, you even took the time on this red barn type house to do a slightly different color on the side. So it's like the moon, which is right above it, is hitting it right where it would hit it in the real world, and it's making it a little bit lighter on this side. If you had put the lighter color on the front of the barn, it wouldn't look as good. Just by doing that one tiny detail, you created such a sense of light and space. I just think this is amazing. I absolutely love it. I also love how there's different wool on the sleeves and the front of the witch. Coming away from the moon, and the simple black border with colors. You know, there's a lot of movement in the background, but then there's several rows of just straight border strips. I love it. I just love it. I love the design by Cami Bruce too. This is just a fantastic Halloween piece. It certainly puts me in the mood. You have a perfectly coordinating rug behind it, so I know I would love to just move into your house anytime. Fantastic. Now this was put up by Sylvia Holiday Gautier. This is one of the Ather groups, Region 10, Ather Region 10. It's called Region 10 Rug Hookers. This is so cool. Now, this is called Antique Floral by Holly Hill, and it's, you can see in the photo also, 30 by 40. So she writes, after a month of not being able to hook, I was finally able to finish my challenge rug. It's a pattern by Susan Quicksall, and I used worms, except for the background. I didn't have enough black, and it's too hot to dye wool. I totally can identify with that sentiment. But you can see that this was another challenge. Somebody called Catherine Buttrick gave a challenge, and in this region, again, there's lots of worm challenges happening. This was Sylvia's answer to the challenge. What I love about this rug, it's a primitive, right? And most people who hook love primitive. I love primitive so much more than like the traditional florals and geometrics in general. They're so soft and unpredictable. For example, it looks, when you first look at it, like a very symmetrical pattern that is fairly uniform, and it's not. These four flowers in the center are completely different. The style of flower is different. The colors of flower are different. And then look at the collection of leaves going around the edge. They're like beautiful, sherbety, ice cream, rainbow, soft, soft, soft colors that are really set off by the antique black background. Now, then we've got the two motifs, top and bottom, and then almost like an arrow going through it. It reminds me almost like a Valentine you know, really asymmetrical in terms of color, the use of color. Over here we've got on the left lots of yellow, lots of warm colors. Over here more grays, gray blues. It's just so different. There's so much to look at. I love how with the floral, the sort of little scrolling florals around, some of the leaves are outlined and you can see there's patterned materials at use here, outlined with different colors on the inside. Isn't that what rug hooking is all about? I mean, it's using little bits and pieces here and there and creating interest. This is a large rug. There's so much interest here. I could just, if I was at a museum, I would rather look at this than, you know, this is maybe sacrilegious to say, a painting, because I feel like there's so much to look at here in terms of color and movement and design. It's gorgeous. With this particular design, I love the way that this arrow feeling motif cuts across the center because it softens it's being softened by the roundness of the design. And these scrolls that are sticking out of the sides you see them on so many old Pearl McGowan type rugs, but they're handled so beautifully here. They don't look super 1920s. They look more Mary Engelbreit kind of colorful, cool flowers, more modern, soft, cartoony, fun, super successful. I absolutely love this rug. I'd love to see the other rugs in this challenge. I'm going to have to visit that page, and you should too. Oh, wow. So Carol Lemon in Contemporary Rug Hooking Group, this is her own design. She writes, this is the largest hook rug that she's done at 5 foot by 7 foot. Now that's exceptional. It took her a year and a half, but she's saying it was indeed fun. This is her own design. Now, there's so much to say about this design that it's crazy. It has a stained glass feel, it has a Tiffany feel, but look around the edges, you know, she's got the patterned wool, little checked wool going around, and even the red looks like a patterned wool. You can tell the size of it with the triangles that are on the border because those are all individual strips. So just judging that in terms of scale, you know this is an enormous piece. It has a game board feel to it. Doesn't it feel like a primitive game board? I love it looks like a backgammon board really with the triangles coming in on the sides. There's so many motifs going on here. It also reminds me of those things, I can't think of the name off the top of my head, but those barn motifs that people put on, the painted motifs that look like quilt blocks on the barns. The central motif looks a lot like that to me, but you can see that the ring around the central motif also is patterned wool. So there's so much graphic detail within detail. This is a Russian nesting doll of pattern and color. It's insane. It's all offset by the simple colors in the center. Not simple in terms of boring, simple like you kept them fairly solid, and then in other parts of the rug, it's much busier with patterned wool and just an insane amount of wool strips. I mean, it's just beautiful. If someone were to say to me, could you ever like a rug that was predominantly gray, blue, and red? I would say no, never. But I would give most parts of my body for this rug at one time. I think it's extraordinary. It is so successful. It's so pretty. It's so different. And it's so good to take on an ambitious project once in a while. You can, like a book, right? On your bedside table, how many books have you got going? You can always pick it up and put it down. You'll remember where you were. It's like riding a bike. You'll get back to it and fall back in. But taking on a project this size it must be a wonderful feeling to finish it. And when you're working on a rug, if you're like me, you listen to music or you listen to books on tape, and you have all of those thoughts and memories that become tied to the piece that you're working on. So over the course of a year working on this, there must be a lot of memories and thoughts tied to it, and it will always be in part a time capsule because it's a huge piece that took so much time, and it couldn't have come out any better, Carol. It's absolutely gorgeous. Oh, this is so nice. This is by Kira Gamboris Mercer. And this was put up in the Hooked Line and Sinker Club. Love this club. This is a loop-by-loop design by Haley Perry, and it's called Cat Dreams. It's 15 by 19. It's kind of funny because tomorrow, Tuesday the 25th of August, I'm going to go over to Haley. She's in Warren, Rhode Island. That's where her loop-by-loop studio is. And we're going to shoot a video together that's hopefully going to be fun and funny. But I'm going to actually be seeing her tomorrow, so it was nice to notice that this is one of Haley's designs. super cute and folky. I just love the whimsicalness of the design. The cat with his little dreams. If you have a cat, you know how they dream of killing things and dead things, and these are the very sorts of things, right? Birds and mice and all of those things that they bring to the back porch turned inside out or just in pieces. But so cute. And again, we had a lot of dogs. This is a cat that we've got. Kira's a beginner, and I think she did an extraordinary job with this. It has such a feel to it. If you look at the way that she handled the coloring, it's, you know, it's like a wood print. It feels like a wood print to me. The little slit for the closed eyes, the little slits for the nails on the front and back, and then the whiskers. It's very impressionistic. The tail too. I love how it's not perfectly evenly striped. It has so much more character. This little piece of white on his back hind leg, and then you've got the shadow in for the hind leg and the hind leg behind it. And it's very clear that you can see that the cat's paws are crossed and that the little pink nose is overhanging the back paw with just a little piece of paw showing. The coloring that you've done, Kira, is fantastic. You've done a lot of different things. And if you're a beginner, you're doing great. You're doing a great job with shading. I love your work with the cat. I love how you outlined the fish. You chose what you were going to outline here, and you did a fantastic job. I think it was a great design choice to do the tails with the kind of colored self-changing wool in pink tones. It made a lot more interest. I love how you outlined the fish, but you didn't completely outline the mice. You outlined the ears and some of the important parts. And then you used really colorful or textured wools for the two birds. It gives a lot of contrast. It makes it different. Doing different things like that, just making different choices about the kinds of wools that you're including are design choices. And even if you are a beginner, you can do something this good by making little choices like that. Sometimes they're happy accidents. Sometimes you agonize about them for 6 months and then make a decision. But if the end product is this good, I think most people would be very, very happy. This is a really charming rug. Speaking of charming rugs, Suzanne Flint. This went up in the contemporary rug hooking group. This is just unbelievable. This is called Narrow Island, Lake George, New York. People loved this rug in the Post. You know, when I grew up in Rhode Island too, one town away from where Haley is, in Barrington, Rhode Island, I was. And my parents always had a print, I was going to say a painting by Cezanne. Now, that would be something, wouldn't it? It was a print, obviously, but it was a lot like this. It looked like this in color, and that was what attracted me to this first. Of course, I don't know that Cezanne ever painted New York State, but Suzanne did, and it is gorgeous. This is properly a rug painting. People loved this, commenting on particularly the reflection. The reflection is unbelievable. If you look at those flecks of beach sand at the island part, and then the green trees in the water, it's not overdone. It's not a mirror reflection. It is so well done. It has that feeling of Cezanne for me. It's so impressionistic. I like this better than anything Cezanne ever did. But it's because I also love Lake George, and it has lots of memories for me as a former tour guide, bringing people out to the lake there and watching them get seasick, but also have a wonderful time taking photos and having drinks. This is just gorgeous. And somebody commented in the comments, I know that island, and you captured it perfectly. So it just goes to show, you know, look at that impressionistic sky. Look at the land behind, the greens, the blues, the grays, the water, the reflection. These are simple lines. This is so successful. This is her own design. This is masterful. This is something that you strive for. It's not going to come automatically, but when you study pieces like this, the color and the composition, it is truly inspiring. Suzanne, this is tremendous. This is gorgeous. This is gorgeous. All of these are, I mean, what's not gorgeous? Everything that I'm looking at right now is just a total home run. This really spoke to me by Tammy Gill. Which one was this? The woolly, ooh, what was it? Woolly, my thing's in the way. Woolly mason jar. Oh my God, how did I not get that? The woolly mason jar. This page is a lot about dyeing, woolly mason jar style, but also obviously a lot about every angle of rug hooking. If you don't belong to woolly mason jar, you should join that immediately. this really spoke to me because at one point in my life, I had a collection of almost 300 antique artists' palettes, and they were all displayed at the same time on my walls when I lived in Amsterdam. And there's actually an article in the BBC magazine Homes and Antiques about them, and I loved them, and I went crazy collecting them. And then I sold most of them because it was just a lot of one thing, but I still have such a deep love for the artist palette because of what it represents. Possibilities, trying, the pursuit of art, even from a beginner point of view, which this rug is not. Just the idea of having the supplies, the means to start making something wonderful. The palette represents that better than anything I can think of. So the palette with the dripping paint brushes, and she designed this too. This is called Brooklyn's Paint Palette. It's 20 by 33 inches, and it's hooked in a number 4 and a number 7, and she dyed all of the colors using the woolly mason jar method. So, and the black is all reclaimed wool. So with the exception of the black background, this is all dyed woolly mason jar style, their technique, which is super successful and easy. And you should check out if you're interested in dyeing. But I just think that the color on this, the appeal of it, the insane graphic appeal of this is so strong. And the words, creativity takes courage. It's so powerful. It's so appealing for anybody that does anything creative. But when your eye just follows the movement of the colors going from the dark reds to the oranges and then the lighter complements, you can picture an artist mixing a little bit of white into these and getting a slightly lighter color. And then he's got his purples and his pastels down here under their corresponding colors going into the forest colors. And the palette itself is a work of art. But the rug is an amazing composition. I think you did a fantastic job, and I love, love, love this rug. I love this rug too. This is so different. This is Tad Richards. He posted this in the Contemporary Rug Hooking group. It doesn't get more different than this, and this is why I love it so much. This is Oxford Punch Needle, and it's called Mushroom Gathering. It's 22 inches by 29 inches. And I just love how different it is. I had to go on Tad's page and look at some of his other pieces that had similar motifs because he's obviously onto something. This is graphically super successful. The colors are just over the top perfect. The use of negative space in this, the places where there are accents and shadow places are just so thoughtfully done. The busyness of it and the simpleness of it running parallel to each other are almost impossible to achieve. And Tad said that he had taken a long break from rug hooking. So I will say I'm very happy that you're back. It's the sun or moon is it's got to be the moon, right? If it's a mushroom radiating yellow into the sky that moves like a Van Gogh. It's super suggestive. It's super colorful. It's a limited palette, really, of primary colors, but there are so many supporting colors behind it, and then the colors that are not complementary to me are my favorites in the piece. These kind of skin tone, fleshy, peachy colors, corally colors, so unexpected. Sort of like the shadow underneath the mushroom. It's incredibly interesting. Incidentally, I got to chatting with Tad over this in a little bit, and I just ordered a book that he wrote on Amazon called Willem and the Werewolf, and it's a retelling of 3 medieval French romances. So it's interesting to know what people are into, and all the interesting supporting information that give you a different read on their pieces. It's also cool and artsy, and it's the most romantic mushroom I've ever seen. I just love it. I love the detail. It's super graphic, but it's still so much motion. It's alive. It's a very alive mushroom. I love it, Tad. Thanks for letting us use this. This is another piece that reminded me of the Lake George piece, but obviously this is very, very different, and I'm just in love. This sky, I'm stuttering because look at the sky and the colors in the silhouette of the tree against the sky. So this was put up by Tseymour, that's T.I. Seymour, on the UAE page. The UAE page is the United Arab Emiratis page, and it's a rug hooking page. It's UAE Rug Makers right here, right? You can see it right there. So this is a great page to watch. It's not one that everybody belongs to, but it's one that maybe you want to join or follow. This is an amazing piece. It reminded me of the Prince of Maxfield Parrish that my grandmother used to have hanging around the house. And in this post, T says that she enjoyed taking Carol Schuen's Tom Thompson Zoom class. It talks a little bit about the history of the group of seven. And I asked her about that. I haven't heard back yet. Maybe you know about that, but I don't. It made me real curious. She said that Carol gave her the names of 3 Cushing dyes to use in the sky and the lake, and that's all she used in them. You know, as a hooker, that it's so hard to get this kind of effect. The sky is one thing, but my God, the lake behind the tree, in super contrast to these tree branches that are not black. They are like maroon, dark brown, cranberry, olive green, like evergreen, dark green. And then in the foreground, a little bit away from the shadow of the trees, more rust colors. The idea of sunset is, I mean, you could say dawn, but I think this to me really looks strongly of sunset. It is so exceptional. The weeping quality of the tree, while it still has that 1920s, 1930s Art Deco graphic silhouette character, still has a weeping softness to it. And the amount of color in every part of this rug, I think, is extraordinary. If you look at the sky and the lake, this is all horizontally hooked. So this would have to be very thoughtfully done. And the idea that 3 dyes could do this makes me wonder, which dyes were they? Because this is extraordinary. I would love myself to ever do a piece like this, but particularly with this kind of background and this kind of silhouetting color with these dark colors, but not black. Imagine doing something like this and being that successful, making something in silhouette without using black. It's extraordinary. It's a beautiful piece. This is a beautiful piece too, put up by Ccree Creations, and this is a punch needle piece. She has some videos you'll see if you go onto her actual page. She also has an Etsy shop called Cody, C-O-T-E-Y Creations. She does a lot of punch needle and a lot of florals, and I will say they look at first glance like traditional florals, but they're not. Look at these colors. Look at the use of color. Look at the shading, particularly around the flowers, but the leaves too are just wildly successful, the shading. Done in yarn, you can see the way that the stems color change and get darker as they get down to the base. That is so beautifully done. The scrolling is very light and filigree. It's not a traditional scrolling. It's not like an old-time rug scrolling. It's like just fingers embracing this little bouquet of flowers, like little fingers hugging. It almost feels like a bird or an eagle over here on the left. I love the unusual choice of the plant versus the flowers, and then that complementary blue around it. I would never have thought of doing a light color in the background, but it works because there are so many colors in the background. It's light, but they're all different colors fusing together, and they're very complementary. You can see purple tones, sort of warm beigey tones and blue tones in the background in the white. So there's so much to see when you look at a background like this versus an antique black background where you expect to see not really black but dark purples, dark aubergine, dark navy, dark forest. This is the equivalent in white, where you're looking at a white background but you're seeing a lot of other colors in the white. There should be a name for this. Maybe it's antique white, but I think it has to be more magical and unique than that. Cody, maybe you can think of a name for this background, but it's extraordinary. So make sure you check out Cody's other work. She's got a lot of beautiful ideas and patterns for punch needle people. So make sure you check out her Etsy shop too. This popped up on my page. We saw it in different stages. Catherine Lux Scimone, sorry. So this is Rug Hooking and Punch Needle Club. This is the famous Hogwarts tree skirt, Harry Potter reference, and she's almost done at this point. It's gorgeous, and I know a lot of people wrote and want this pattern. Lots of Harry Potter fans out there eternally, that will never change, but all these different motifs that relate to the books and the stories, and hugely popular, successful series of books and movies. But I just love this piece. It's so cool to see an original piece like this. Kathleen says that her daughters are already fighting over it for their college trees. And luckily, she herself is a teacher, so she had an overhead projector, and she was able to design this and transfer it onto the fabric. It's always tricky when you do your own designs like this and you know what you want to do. You need tools that are not at everybody's disposal, like an overhead projector, to be able to make this a reality. But to get this many, I mean, I've only read a few of the stories and it was a while ago. It makes me want to revisit all of them. But to get this many excellent motifs into this, I'm sorry, Kathleen, but I think you're probably going to end up making at least a second one for the other daughter, right? It's going to be tough at Christmas if there's not two. But this is so successful. I was so happy to see this finished. I know you're going to finish the edges, but we saw the evolution of this on the Rug Hooking and Punch Needle Club group, and people were just remarking on it all along. It's so cool and different. And on to our last piece for this week. Jessica Spray posted in the Woolly Mason Jar rug hooking page this original pattern. So it hasn't been started yet, and we can look forward to the evolution of this second Halloween pattern I had to include this month. But this is something that she drew herself that I think is so charming and sweet. A pair of like pumpkin scarecrow type characters with straw coming out of the sleeves and the cuffs, with pumpkin jack-o'-lantern heads, but not miserable ones, not American Gothic ones. These are like happy ones with wiggly smiles and half smiles. They're both donning hats, overalls on the man with a little bird resting in the crook of his arm, and the woman is holding sunflowers. I can just picture this being hooked. I cannot wait for it to be hooked. This piece is 24 by 24 on linen, and she is selling it for $16. If you want a copy of this, you can reach her on her Facebook page. If you go to her Facebook page, it's called 4 P's, which is a capital P apostrophe S, 4 P's in a Pod Creations. If you look that up on Facebook, you'll see this pattern. I'm really anxious to follow this, and I put this as the last sort of slide this week because it's like a cliffhanger, isn't it? It's like we're looking forward to the next thing. I have my own idea of what colors I would want to do with this. And if you know from my page, I'm so crazy about Halloween, and I don't know why. Everything Halloween appeals to me, and this was so different. This is the opposite of sort of a scary Halloween picture. I'm so curious, Jessica, to see what kinds of colors you're going to do and what kind of a treatment you're going to do with the background, because there's a lot of negative space in the background. I'm so curious to see how you're going to fill it. So for now, that's it for our slides.
So thank you so much to everybody who allowed me to use your rugs to talk about this week. I'm going to love doing this series of weekly videos recapping. It's so nice to look at everybody's work one more time. Again, if you have something that you'd like me to put on one of our weekly, I shoot them on Sundays and I'll post them on Mondays. If you'd like to put something in it, just send me a note or tag me in something. Please like, subscribe, anything you can to this video to make it more visible to other people. It keeps people coming to the page and gives me good feedback, which is always a nice thing. I hope you enjoyed this first installment of the weekly rug hooking review recap show, and I will see you next week for the same thing.